In this WrestleTalk news, an AEW star is suspended, what happened with MJF when Dynamite went off the air, and Ollie's gonna be here reviewing AEW Dynamite. So subscribe and enable notifications always on for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
I think it's fair to say that AEW has undoubtedly had a humdinger of a 2022, and while MJF recently stated on Twitter that AEW are finally stepping out of the darkness and into the light, some are still feeling the repercussions of their actions of the last few months. While it may only be the second biggest AEW backstage bust-up of the year, Andrade and Sammy Guevara's kerfuffle on October the 5th led to the former being sent home and the latter being rewarded with a main event pin. And while this decision was obviously scrutinized at the time, it is abundantly clear who AEW believes was at fault for the whole thing, as we haven't seen Andrade back on TV since. And while Andrade's official AEW status has been unclear for a while, a new report from the Wrestling Observer may have finally cleared things up. Because Andrade was scheduled to go one-on-one with Drilistico at an RGR Lucha Libre show in California this Sunday, but will now be replaced by fellow AEW talent Rey Fenix on the show. The reason for this was Andrade having an issue to attend, which would later lead to the event's organisers posting an apology video from El Idolo, who appeared to be wearing a hospital gown, suggesting that the reason was probably injury-related. However, most interestingly, when covering the news, the Wrestling Observer referred to Andrade as the currently suspended AEW star, something that, while speculated, has never actually been confirmed by AEW or Andrade himself. So what do they know over there at Wrestling Observer? But the question remains, will Andrade ever make his way back to the AEW fold, or is he too far gone at this point? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. Moving on to a currently flourishing AEW talent, MJF, who appeared on last night's Go Home episode of Dynamite for the first time in 2 weeks to build his main event match with champion Jon Moxley. However, after Dynamite went off air, the generational talent wasn't quite done for the night, delivering a fiery promo to the live crowd in Bridgeport, Connecticut. But the most interesting thing about all of this was who was in the ring with him, because it was none other than president of AEW, Tony Khan. You know, the guy MJF called a mark back in June. However, this time around, Maxwell was much kinder to the big boss, crediting him for his hard work and his countering of the WWE monopoly by creating an alternative place for pro wrestlers to work. Interestingly though, MJF also seems to be firing off some subliminal shots at his original opponent for Full Gear, CM Punk, saying, "What I damn sure don't take lightly is somebody coming into my company, dropping trow and taking a dump. That ain't happening anymore." So we can now add MJF to the anti-Punk AEW camp. So yeah, it's pretty much everyone versus Punk and FTR at this point. He's not coming back. He's not coming back, is he? Speaking of Punk, while we're still awaiting confirmation of a contract buyout, many have assumed that Punk's only natural destination afterwards is WWE. Now obviously, the WWE Punk bridge is seemingly burned beyond repair. However, perhaps the glaring personal issues, specifically the ones between Punk and Papa H, may not be enough to actually stop the CM Punk train pulling back into the WWE station over the bridge that was burned and has now been rebuilt by Isambard Kingdom Brunel. That's a confusing metaphor. Speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer spoke of the issues between Punk and some backstage in WWE, saying there are people who absolutely do not want him there. Despite this, Meltzer notes that while Punk has many detractors in WWE, many of those individuals are reportedly not within the WWE creative team and would not have the final say. But that seemingly suggests that Triple H may not be opposed to the idea of Punk returning in the future. Meltzer did note, however, that the Punk all-out media scrum and that whole resulting situation has understandably led some in the company asking, do we really want that? Do we need that?
This episode is sponsored by Established Titles, a great gift that not only makes your name awesome, it also helps save the world. Established Titles is a fun and novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland while helping global reforestation efforts. Here's how it works. Once you buy an Established Titles pack, you become the owner of a 1 square foot piece of land all the way in the mythical realm of Scotland. Apparently actually a real place. And thanks to a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds, you can then officially become a lord or a lady. Which means, for realsies, you can change your name on credit cards, dating profiles, and even lend credence to royalty-based props for gimmicks to try and get yourself over, which otherwise don't mean anything. And the first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my link below will effectively be next to my plot. We can build our own WrestleTalk kingdom, where I'm still in charge. But here's the best bit. With every purchase, Established Titles plants a tree, working with global charities One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future to support global reforestation efforts. It makes for a great last-minute gift, especially with Established Titles running a Black Friday sale. And with my code WrestleTalk, you get an extra 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/WrestleTalk to get your gifts now and help support this channel. And do it quickly to get land next to my plot, Lord that Lord. It's Wednesday. You know what that means. Thursday. You know what that means. The go-home show for this Sunday's Full Gear. I mean Saturday. And it's my review of AEW Dynamite in about 5 minutes. The show opened on a tag match version of the Ring of Honor Championship 4-Way this Sunday. I mean Saturday! Claudio Castagnoli and Bryan Danielson teaming against Chris Jericho and Sammy Guevara. But how will they coexist? Pretty seamlessly, actually. Danielson and Claudio were the better team, with Bryan bullet diving Sammy outside so Castagnoli could tap out Jericho in the sharpshooter, which makes me think Jericho is retaining at Full Gear. Sting was doing the school run in Darby's latest short film, driving them both to Full Gear. Plenty of time to make it there by Sunday. What? It's Saturday? Pedal to the metal, Sting! Someone should write this down. The Acclaimed premiered their brand new music video, which was a diss track on their Full Gear opponent Swerve in Our Glory. I, along with everyone else, love the Acclaimed, but their music videos are never as good as their entrance raps. Feels like the escalation is the wrong way round there. But they did have Big Show reviving his Captain Insano gimmick from the Waterboy, which means this is a 5-star show. I understand that reference. I love the wedding singer. The ensuing match was far better, with Swerve Strickland heelishly and flamboyantly working over Anthony Bowens' arm. It told a great story going into the pay-per-view that Bowens is injury-prone and lets Caster down. AEW have done a really good job at making this third match between the two teams very unpredictable. Samoa Joe trashed Wardlow and the fans next, but oddly, not Tony Schiavone. Hey! That's Britt Baker's gimmick. This brought out Powerhouse Hobbs and Wardlow for the wrestling equivalent of a triple Big Mac with extra triple Big Mac. The three kaijus brawled as the locker room emptied to keep them apart, which was mostly comprised of members of the Dark Order. Wardlow stood tall with a flip dive over the top rope outside. They'll fight for the TNT title on Saturday and/or Sunday. This is the best thing that's happened to that belt since Wardlow won it. Britt Baker cut an uncharacteristically babyface promo backstage next. She agreed with Sir Rayer's criticism that yeah, she has only been wrestling for 3 years. During that time, she did it in Daly's Place, Jacksonville, for the fans when there was nothing else during the pandemic. It positioned Britt not only as a full-on babyface, but as a defender of the heart of AEW against the invading ex-WWE person. It's fantastic three-dimensional character work from Baker, but in doing so, it has explained Saraya's clunkily explained motivation. Later on, when Saraya got to reply, she just said she'd see her in the Tokyo Dome. I mean Sunday! I mean Saturday! I mean at the Prudential Center! The match of the night came next with a terrific Trios Championship match of Death Triangle retaining against Top Flight and AR Fox. There were so many flips, rolling cutters, and shooting stars off turnbuckle rungs outside that the pretty lifeless crowd began to chant, "This is awesome." But it was the 2 extra layers of story that really elevated this. Darius Martin returning to the ring after a car accident to team with his brother Dante, and the AEW debut of veteran AR Fox, who commentary did a great job getting over as an innovator of the high-flying style many in AEW use today. He won over the crowd instantly. But the big news came in the post-match. Thanks for your support on Patreon, Angelic, Angelo Mercado, and the Mile High Marvel, Denver Peters. You too can get your own shout out by going to patreon.com/WrestleTalk. Pat cut a promo saying, yeah, he's seen the Elite videos. He's not stupid. He actually watches the program. And if they are making their triumphant return on Sunday or Saturday, Death Triangle is going to beat them. A match graphic then appeared revealing it'll be the Elite versus Death Triangle at Full Gear, and the crowd goes mild. The audience didn't react to much all night, but in this case, I agree. The Elite comeback teasers have been severely lackluster, and any momentum they could have used off the back of Brawl Out has stalled. Ethan Page beat Bandido next with an ego's edge to advance in the Championship Eliminator Tournament. I really like Ethan Page. I always have done, but AEW's booking of him hasn't been good enough to fully integrate the goofy and badass parts of his character or present him as a credible upper mid-carder. And having him go over fan favourites like Eddie Kingston last week and Bandido, who was fantastic here, isn't getting him heel heat, it's just making me groan. Toni Storm beat Anna JAS. Storm should have dominated more considering she's in the title match at Full Gear. Jamie Hayter got in her face afterwards. We got the more details on AEW's first show in the UK that was teased last week. It's a graphic with precisely no more details. Just saying London 2023. Excalibur somehow ran down the 82-match Full Gear card in one continuous breath, and the main event segment pitted that pay-per-view's World Championship match against each other on the mic. It started off decent, with Moxley cutting a promo on how he's the best wrestler in the world, but utterly tanked when the Firm came down to beat up him and William Regal.
Stop trying to make
The Firm
happen.
This brought out MJF to a big babyface pop, where he took out the entire faction, further showing how lame the Firm are, and undermining Ethan Page, who's being groomed to fight for the world title. It also somewhat undermines the Blackpool Combat Club, with none of Moxley's faction mates coming to save him or their beloved mentor Regal. In 10 months, they've gone from the coolest act in wrestling to not much more than a logo on a hoodie. But then Max paid homage to CM Punk, so I was immediately back on board with this segment. MJF started his promo with, "John, while you're lying there, hopefully in a ton of pain, let me explain something," subtly referencing the start of Punk's 2011 pipe bomb down to Cena's first name. MJF saved Mox, so there's no excuses come Full Gear. And he needs that title more than he needs water, because it means he'll be the best wrestler in the world. It was a typically excellent MJF promo. Unfortunately, the exchange fell flat when Moxley got the Full Gear day wrong before turning and asking if the show was on Saturday or Sunday. You could say that fits with Mox's character. He's in his own badass world. He doesn't care what day of the week it is, as long as he gets to do some violence. And you'd be totally right with that interpretation. But to me, it made this whole segment end on an amateurish note. That your world champion got the pay-per-view date wrong and then corrected himself so half-heartedly, like it was going to be edited out of the live version of this show. The whole feud and Mox's promos from the last few weeks have felt a bit like just counting down the days until he finally gets to go on that long-awaited holiday. It's a feeling that lurks up and down AEW programming right now, that they're just trying to get through to Full Gear after the devastating fallout of All Out. What did you think of Dynamite? Let me know in the comments down below. There was nothing bad on this show, but there wasn't anything blow away either, which is what go home episodes need. This week's Dynamite felt like a 3 out of 5 show, which, in percentage terms, is 60%. Is Sasha Banks done with WWE? Watch on to find out more.
In this WrestleTalk news, perhaps the first big sign that Sasha Banks is done with WWE, but the company does have interest in 2 other big indie names, updates on Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy returning, and more.